You can start, Your Excellency. I will speak in Arabic because we are international. We have to. And here the language. Because of the UN SG here, and we have 6 international language, I will speak in Arabic. So please, you can put your headset. مساء الخير جميعا، معالي الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، الأمين العام للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية، الممثلون الدائمون للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية، الضيوف والحضور الكرام. إنه لشرف عظيم أن افتتح هذا الحدث الخاص وأن أرحب بالأمين العام للأمم المتحدة معالي أنطونيو غوتيريس في هذه الجلسة الاستثنائية لمؤتمر المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية 2025. ويسعدني كذلك أن أرحب اليوم بحضور السيدة تاتيانا المدير العام لمكتب الأمم المتحدة في جنيف. معالي الأمين العام غوتيريس، لقد كان نداءكم للعمل في اليوم العالمي للأرصاد الجوية في 23 مارس 2022 لضمان أن يكون كل شخص على وجه الأرض محميا بأنظمة إنذار مبكر خلال ال5 سنوات. إن هذه المبادرة تحولا استراتيجيا في حماية الأرواح ودعم التنمية. ومن التقييم العالمي الأول لاتفاقية باريس إلى خطة إنتيغو وبربودا للدول الجزرية الصغيرة النامية وصولا إلى ميثاق المستقبل، فقد ساهمت قيادتكم في ترسيخ أنظمة الإنذار المبكر في صميم الاتفاقيات الدولية. سعادة الأمين العام، بصفتي رئيسا للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية، فنحن نعبر عن تقديرنا الكامل والتزامنا الثابت نيابة عن أعضائنا بالرؤية الطموحة لمبادرة الأمم المتحدة 80. إن مهمتنا الأساسية ولا سيما تفويضنا لتقديم الإنذارات المبكرة للجميع تتمثل في كونها ركيزة أساسية للصمود في وجه تغير المناخ، وتدعم بشكل مباشر رؤيتكم للسلام والتقدم، وبشكل خاص لأمن نظام كوكب الأرض. ولتحقيق هذه الرؤية فعليا وحماية الفئات الأكثر ضعفا في العالم، يجب علينا أن ننتقل فورا من التعاون غير المنتظم إلى تناغم استراتيجي رسمي عبر منظمة الأمم المتحدة بأكملها. وفي هذا الإطار أرى ما يلي: توثيق علاقة المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية مع المجلس الاقتصادي والاجتماعي للأمم المتحدة، وذلك بهدف دمج أعمالها الحيوية في مجالات الطقس والمناخ والمياه والأمور البيئية المرتبطة مع أهداف الأمم المتحدة للتنمية المستدامة. بالإضافة إلى ذلك أرى أهمية عقد اجتماعات رفيعة المستوى على مستوى مكاتب الوكالات المتخصصة من الأمم المتحدة تضم المسؤولين والإدارة التنفيذية، بحيث تكون أنشطة المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية أكثر ارتباطا بجهات مثل المنظمة الدولية للطيران المدني والاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات والمنظمة البحرية الدولية، لضمان تنسيق العمل وتوحيد السياسات بشأن الأولويات المشتركة. إن مجتمعنا ممتن للغاية لمعاليكم على قيادتكم ودعمكم الراسخ، ونتطلع إلى الاستماع إلى رؤيتكم في المستقبل. الآن أدعو معالي الأمين العام أنطونيو غوتيريس لإلقاء كلمته. تفضل سيدي.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations on this landmark anniversary. For 75 years, the World Meteorological Organization has been a barometer of truth, a credible and clear-eyed source of data and information about the planet we share, and a shining example of science supporting humanity. Every day, your scientists, technologists, and meteorologists embody your anniversary's theme of science for action, transforming observations into data, data into understanding, and understanding into life-saving action. Without your rigorous modeling and forecasting, we would not know what lies ahead or how to prepare for it. Without your long-term monitoring, we wouldn't benefit from the warnings and guidance that protect communities and save millions of lives and billions of dollars each year. And without you, we would never have understood the emergence of the dangerous and existential threat of climate change. Your State of the Climate reports tell a consistent story. Global warming is pushing our planet to the brink. Every one of the last 10 years has been the hottest in history. Ocean heat is breaking records while decimating ecosystems. And no country is safe from fires, floods, storms, and heat waves. As always, the poorest and most vulnerable countries pay the highest price, particularly small island developing states and the least developed countries. But as the climate crisis accelerates, so too are the solutions to how communities adapt. Early warning systems, the focus of your meeting today, are a prime example. Early warnings are not an abstraction. They give farmers the power to protect their crops and livelihood and livestock, enable families to evacuate safely, and protect entire communities from devastation. We know that disaster-related mortality is at least 6 times lower in countries with good early warning systems in place. And just 24 hours notice before an hazardous event can reduce damage by up to 30%. Early warnings, and they're finally getting the attention and the investment they deserve. Over 60% of countries now report having multi-hazard early warning systems in place. At least developed countries have nearly doubled their capacity since official reporting began. Observation networks, regional collaboration, and forecast capabilities are growing stronger every year. And breakthroughs in digital technology and artificial intelligence are modernizing data exchange and alerting. Your new report on hazard monitoring and forecasting shows how much stronger forecast and warning systems have become. But we have a long way to go. In 2022, I launched the United Nations Early Warnings for All initiative to ensure everyone everywhere is protected by an alert system by 2027. And I commend the WMO Secretary-General's call to action that was endorsed earlier this week to act at the speed and scale required. To bring our vision to life, I see three areas of urgent action. First, governments must embed early warning systems across their policies, institutions and budgets. This requires bringing together meteorological and hydrological services into national disaster risk reduction mechanisms, including through legislation. We also need renewed collaboration among governments, businesses and communities to ensure that early warning systems and technology reach the most vulnerable communities. Second, financing. Reaching every community requires a surge in financing. But too many developing countries are blocked by limited fiscal space, slowing growth, crushing debt burdens and growing systemic risks. The Financing for Development Conference in Seville in June emerged with a consensus to unlock more finance for developing countries, to strengthen capacity to mobilize domestic resources, to triple the lending power of multilateral development banks, making them bigger and bolder, to leverage more private finance, and to ease debt burdens with new instruments that reduce borrowing costs and risks, including from climate shocks, and speed up support for countries facing debt distress. And to reform global financial institutions so they better meet the needs of developing countries. Excellences, enfin, nous devons traiter les problèmes des catastrophes climatiques à la racine, c'est-à-dire lutter contre le réchauffement rapide de la planète. D'ici à la conférence des Nations Unies pour les changements climatiques en novembre au Brésil, tous les pays doivent présenter de nouveaux plans nationaux d'action climatique, des plans ambitieux et conformes à l'objectif de limiter le réchauffement à 1,5 degré Celsius. Ils doivent notamment inclure des engagements pour réduire les émissions de gaz à effet de serre au cours des 10 prochaines années. Mais la science est claire, nous devons être beaucoup plus ambitieux. Au Brésil, les dirigeants doivent convenir d'un plan crédible afin de mobiliser pour les pays en développement 1 300 milliards de dollars par an d'ici à 2035 pour financer l'action climatique. Les pays développés doivent honorer leur engagement de doubler le financement de l'adaptation pour le porter à minima à 40 milliards de dollars cette année et déployer rapidement des outils reconnus pour débloquer des milliards de dollars supplémentaires de financement concessionnel. Le fonds pour les pertes et dommages doit être doté de contributions substantielles. Les dirigeants doivent aussi pleinement exploiter la puissance et le potentiel illimité des énergies renouvelables. L'année dernière, la quasi-totalité des nouvelles capacités de production d'électricité étaient renouvelables et les investissements dans ce domaine sont en forte hausse. Les énergies renouvelables sont la source d'énergie la moins chère, la plus rapide et la plus judicieuse. Elles constituent la seule voie crédible pour mettre un terme à la dégradation inexorable de notre climat. Dans le même temps, nous devons lutter contre la désinformation, le harcèlement en ligne et l'éco-blanchissement. Dans le cadre de l'initiative mondiale pour l'intégrité de l'information sur les changements climatiques, lancée récemment, gouvernements et organisations collaborent pour financer la recherche et l'action en faveur de l'intégrité de l'information sur les questions climatiques. Les sciences et les chercheurs ne devraient jamais craindre de dire la vérité. Je tiens à vous assurer ainsi qu'à l'ensemble de la communauté scientifique de mon entière solidarité. Je serai toujours à vos côtés. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, plus que jamais, nous avons besoin d'idées, d'expertise et de l'influence de l'Organisation météorologique mondiale. Vous êtes la force tranquille qui éclaire chacune des décisions climatiquement rationnelles que nous prenons. Continuez d'œuvrer ensemble pour mettre la science au service de l'action et de la justice dont les peuples et la planète ont besoin de toute urgence. Je vous remercie.
شكرا لك معالي الأمين العام على كلماتك الملهمة وعلى تقديركم الكبير لعمل هذا المؤتمر ومنظمتنا. الآن يسرني أن أقدم الكلمة إلى الأمين العام البروفيسورة سيليستي ساولو لإلقاء كلمتها الافتتاحية. تفضلي.
Thank you very much, Secretary-General António Guterres, President Abdullah Al-Mandous, Director General Tatiana Valoyeva, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, friends. Let me begin by expressing our heartfelt thanks to Secretary-General Guterres for his inspiring remarks and for honoring us with his presence today. On behalf of the WMO community, I wish to express my deep appreciation for joining us today and for your first visit to WMO and to our Congress. Thank you very much. This week, we mark a remarkable milestone, the 75th anniversary of the World Meteorological Organization as a UN specialized agency. 75 years of scientific excellence and shared responsibility to protect our planet and the people who call it home. And 152 years of international cooperation in weather, climate, and water. 75 years of data sharing and science for action. 75 years of trust. We have saved millions of lives and prevented many billions of dollars in loss. We gather at a time when our mission has never been more urgent. The impacts of climate change are accelerating. More extreme weather is destroying lives and livelihoods and eroding hard-won development gains. Yet, this is not only a moment of challenge, it is also a moment of profound opportunity to harness climate intelligence and technological advances to build a more resilient future for all. Secretary-General Guterres has been a steadfast champion of WMO science as the foundation for sound policy and decisive action. His vision shaped many of the global initiatives we are advancing together, none more urgent or unifying than the Early Warnings for All initiative launched in 2022. Earlier this week, a high-level event at this extraordinary Congress endorsed my call to action on early warnings for all. I am grateful to the UN Secretary-General for amplifying that call to action among us today. I would like to emphasize once again the imperative to scale up multi-hazard early warnings and impact-based forecasting, to empower national meteorological and hydrological services, to expand observing networks and data exchange, and broaden the tent for both partners and beneficiaries. We must leave nobody behind. Distinguished delegates, I look forward to hearing your reflections on how we, as the World Meteorological Organization, can go even faster and further together to realize the vision of early warnings for all. In closing, I want to echo the words of the Secretary-General. Let's continue working as one to use science to deliver the action and the justice that people and planet urgently need. I thank the Secretary-General for his leadership and vision. And I thank you for your dedication, your expertise, and your partnership. The world is counting on us. Together, we will deliver. Thank you very much.
شكرا لك البروفيسورة سيليستي. الآن نبدأ حوارنا التفاعلي، حيث سنستمع إلى رؤساء الاتحادات الإقليمية للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية وإلى سعادة غوتيريس حول التحديات والإنجازات الفريدة في مناطقهم المختلفة. أود أن أذكر جميع المتحدثين بلطف أن تكون مداخلاتهم في حدود الدقيقتين كحد أقصى. أدعو الآن السيد فاتني رئيس الاتحاد الإقليمي الأول أفريقيا. تفضل سيدي.
Your Excellency, Mr. António Guterres, UN Secretary-General, Dr. Abdallah Al-Mandous, President of WMO, Professor Celeste Saulo, WMO Secretary-General, fellow PRs, ladies and gentlemen, I am the PR of Ethiopia with WMO, and I am representing the WMO Regional Association for Africa as President. I can affirm that climate and weather-related risks are growing in frequency and intensity, affecting livelihood and the national development priorities across the continent. To respond effectively, national meteorological and hydrological services must be equipped with science and the capacity with sustained, predictable financing. Since 2022, when you had launched the Early Warning for All initiative, Africa has been on the forefront in implementing the initiative by developing the Africa Action Plan 2023 to 2027. Initiatives such as climate risk and the early warning system and the Green Climate Fund have made meaningful contributions. These have supported targeted capacity building and adaptation planning efforts to strengthen early warning system across the vulnerable countries. For Africa, SOF finance the collection of essential weather and climate data, serving as backbone for early warning for all. However, financing mechanism must be scaled up and become accessible, aligned with national priorities and responsive to the operational realities we face on the ground. African national meteorological and hydrological services are on the front lines of climate adaptation, but too often we are the last to receive the investments required to do our work effectively. I urge the international community to view investment in weather, climate and hydrological services not as optional but as foundational to sustainable development, disaster risk reduction and climate resilience. Thank you, UN Secretary General, for your leadership in advancing for climate justice and for ensuring Africa's voice remains central in global financial decisions. Thank you very much.
شكرا لك السيد فاتني. والآن أدعو الدكتور أيمن سالم غلام رئيس الاتحاد الإقليمي الثاني آسيا. تفضل سيدي.
شكرا سعادة الرئيس. سوف أتحدث باللغة العربية. معالي الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة السيد أنطونيو غوتيريس، معالي الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية البروفيسورة سيليستا، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اسمي الدكتور أيمن غلام، أنا الرئيس التنفيذي للمركز الوطني للأرصاد الجوية في المملكة العربية السعودية، وأمثل الرئيس الإقليمي للإقليم الثاني لآسيا التابع للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية. يسعدني أن أشارككم ببعض الأفكار الموجزة في منطقتنا، وأود أن أسلط الضوء بشكل خاص على الدور التحولي للتقنيات الحديثة والابتكار، ولا سيما الذكاء الاصطناعي في إحداث ثورة في طرق عملنا. تعد قارة آسيا من أكثر مناطق العالم تأثرا بالكوارث، كما أنها القارة الأكثر اكتظاظا بالسكان. وهي تشهد زيادة في معدلات درجات الحرارة تقارب ضعف المتوسط العالمي. ومن الجبال إلى السواحل باتت آثار تغير المناخ متأصلة بعمق في أنماط حياة مجتمعاتنا وفي سبل عيشهم وفي أمنهم الغذائي وفي أعمالهم. في الأشهر الأربع الماضية استضافت آسيا مؤتمرين عالميين بارزين ركزا على تطبيق الذكاء الاصطناعي في التنبؤ بالطقس والتصدي للتحديات البيئية. فقد عقد منتدى الأرصاد الجوية ضمن مؤتمر الذكاء الاصطناعي العالمي في شنغهاي في يوليو، تلاه مؤتمر الذكاء الاصطناعي الذي نظمته المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية في أبو ظبي بالإمارات العربية المتحدة في سبتمبر. وقد استعرض هذان الحدثان الإمكانات الاستثنائية للذكاء الاصطناعي في تحزيز قدرات التنبؤ والإنذار المبكر، كما شدد على أهمية ضمان مشاركة فوائد هذه التقنيات بشكل عادل لخدمة الصالح العالمي. نرحب من هنا بقرار الجمعية العامة للأمم المتحدة الأخير بشأن الذكاء الاصطناعي، ونرى فيه فرصة كبيرة لمواءمة جهود مجتمع الأرصاد الجوية المعني بالذكاء الاصطناعي مع هذه المبادرات العالمية الأوسع. ونحن متفائلون بأن مثل هذه التقنيات قادرة على تحقيق تطورات ملموسة في منطقتنا، لا سيما في إطار مبادرة الإنذار المبكر للجميع، مع التركيز بشكل خاص على البلدان المتوسطة الدخل. ومع ذلك لا تزال هناك تحديات كبيرة، ومن الضروري سد الفجوة الرقمية وتعزيز المهارات والقدرات في خدمات الأرصاد الجوية. نشكر قيادتكم المستمرة في رسم ملامح مستقبل يكون فيه الابتكار في خدمة الإنسانية جمعاء، وشكرا لإصغائكم.
شكرا لك دكتور أيمن غلام. أدعو الآن السيد إيفان توماس رئيس الاتحاد الإقليمي الرابع أمريكا الشمالية وأمريكا الوسطى والكاريبي. تفضل سيدي.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and Your Excellency, Mr. Guterres. I am the Director of the National Meteorological Service of Jamaica and the WMO Regional President for North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. I speak not only for my region, but in solidarity with small island developing states across the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, and Atlantic regions. Though oceans separate us, we face common threats. Rising sea levels, more intense storms, prolonged droughts, and an ever-tightening climate finance landscape. For SIDS, the constant challenges related to weather and climate extremes are a lived reality. Our economies are small and exposed. Our infrastructure is vulnerable, and yet we are forced to absorb repeated shocks with minimal resources and limited access to the financing we need to prepare and adapt. There is a silent but real expectation from the member states for a comprehensive approach across the full value chain. In the case of early warnings for all, the expectation to have a cross-pillar approach serving the needs of the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services and the National Disaster Management Organizations is all the more important. We are convinced that there is a need to align donor financing mechanisms with innovative financial solutions to ensure timely, effective, and sustainable implementation of the Early Warnings for All initiative. Despite the challenges, SIDS have shown what is possible through science-based cooperation. Our National Meteorological and Hydrological Services are working together every day to protect communities through early warning systems, supported by regional initiatives like the Weather Ready Nations and other impact-based forecasting initiatives. These systems must, however, be scaled, sustained, and regionally integrated if they are to serve all who need them, especially the most vulnerable. We urge the international community to recognize that resilience in SIDS is not just about survival. It's about enabling development with dignity. Predictable, accessible, and simplified financing for weather and climate services is essential. Mr. Guterres, we thank you for being a voice for those of us on the front lines and for ensuring that SIDS are not seen as small in voice or vision, but as leaders in resilience and innovation. Thank you.
شكرا لك سيد إيفان. الآن أدعو الدكتورة إلينا ماتيسكو رئيسة الاتحاد الإقليمي السادس أوروبا. تفضلي سيدتي.
Thank you, Mr. President, Your Excellency, Secretary-General of the United Nations. I am Director of Romania National Meteorological Services and President of Regional Association 6 Europe of WMO. I witness daily how science-based multilateral cooperation saves lives. Our community, through the World Meteorological Organization, and trust regional partners like the European Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecast and the European Organization for the Exploitation of Meteorological Satellites, has built one of the most effective and enduring examples of global collaboration. Every day, countries around the world share data freely, feeding into global models that allow us to produce accurate, timely forecasts and yearly warnings. This system is a vital success story of collective action, one that protects lives, supports economy, and strengthens resilience in the face of climate change and weather extreme. It stands as a powerful example of what can be achieved when nations work together with trust, transparency, and a shared commitment to the well-being of all. Initiatives such as Systematic Observation Financing Facility and the Yearly Warning for All, launched under your leadership, show how multilateralism, when it is inclusive and grounded in equity, continue to deliver for the global good. At the same time, when multilateral systems are under strain, the meteorological community reminds us what is possible when nations work together, not for headlines, but for humanity. We urge all partners to build on the achievement of World Meteorological Organization and reinforce science-based multilateralism as a common of the climate change action and sustainable development. The stakes are high, but the path forward is clear. Cooperation, equity, and science must guide our collective and common effort. Thank you, Secretary-General Mr. Guterres, for your leadership in ensuring that cooperation remains at the heart of our collective response to the challenge ahead. Thank you so much.
شكرا لك الدكتورة إلينا. شكرا لكم جميعا على ملاحظاتكم القيمة، ونثمن كثيرا ما شاركتمونا به من أفكار ورؤى. وانطلاقا من المقولة التي تنص على أن السلسلة لا تكون أقوى من أضعف حلقاتها، دعونا ننتقل الآن إلى استعراض الروابط بين ركائز مبادرة الإنذار المبكر للجميع. يسعدني أن أعطي الكلمة الآن إلى السيد كمال كيشور، الممثل الخاص للأمين العام للأمم المتحدة المعني بالحد من مخاطر الكوارث في مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، والقيادي المشارك لمبادرة الإنذار المبكر للجميع. تفضل سيد كمال.
Mr. Secretary-General, President of WMO, Dr. Almanduz, my esteemed colleague, Professor Saulo, leadership of WMO, Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Secretary-General, in 2022, you articulated a compelling vision, but you also threw us a challenge. We've risen to the challenge Your initiative is making tangible difference wherever I go, whether it's SIDS like Kiribati or landlocked countries like Tajikistan or Central American countries like Guatemala or countries in Africa like Tajikistan. Everywhere the initiative is making a tangible difference. And I would like to say, Secretary General, that this really represents the best of the UN. How we bring together a number of agencies, other international organizations such as Red Cross to provide a full package service across the entire value chain. So we are very encouraged, but we've got only 2 years left to your challenge, to your deadline. And 2 critical areas remain which require greater attention. Financing. Since you launched the initiative, financing has transformed already. We have much more money available now for early warning, but not nearly as much as we need. The second is that we need much greater national ownership underpinned by strong governance frameworks that empower national met agencies, disaster risk management authorities, telecom agencies, and so on. If we did these 2 things, this is one of the 7 targets of Sendai. It's entirely within reach. Thank you very much.
شكرا سيد كمال. الكلمة الآن للسيد توماس لامانوس كاس نائب الأمين العام للاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات. تفضل سيد.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Excellencies, colleagues, ITU's role in early warnings for all is to ensure that every alert is delivered instantly, reliably, and inclusively. Through mobile networks, satellite, radio, TV, social media, and sirens, leaving no one behind. Today, 95% of people are covered by a mobile network, and 4 in 5 own a mobile phone. Yet, despite strong progress achieved on early warning systems, around 140 countries still lack inclusive, mobile-based early warning systems, and only 45 countries use cell broadcast. ITU is supporting over 30 countries to become cell broadcast ready, with 17 feasibility studies and 10 common alerting protocol implementation projects. At last week's G20 meeting, we highlighted the role of cell broadcast in reliable last-mile communication. We're working with partners to harness the power of technology and AI for early warnings as well. From Mauritius, soon to be one of Africa's first countries with national cell broadcast, to Haiti, where over 100,000 location-based SMS flood alerts have been sent, we're turning communications networks into lifelines. Thank you very much.
شكرا سيد توماس. والآن أدعو السيدة نينا كوفيتش الأمين العام المساعد للاتحاد الدولي لجمعيات الصليب الأحمر والهلال الأحمر. تفضلي سيدي.
Thank you. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to saving lives and livelihoods, the critical window for action lies between a warning and an impact. That is why strengthening multi-hazard early warning systems in local communities around the world matters so much. IFRC leverages the deep community reach and trust of our 191 Red Cross and Red Crescent societies worldwide to play this role in cooperation and in partnership with WMO, DRR, and ITU. Early warnings must lead to early coordinated action. For that to happen, they should be backed by robust legal frameworks, clear policies, and actionable plans. These are the foundations that enable anticipatory action and institutionalized preparedness. Since the launch of Early Warnings for All, the number of active anticipatory action frameworks have doubled from 70 to 154, co-developed with national authorities, hydrometeorological services, and key partners. And the number continues to grow, including in areas. Yet, even the best plans require financing. That is why we promote anticipatory action through funding mechanisms such as IFRC's DRAF, UN SERV, or Start Network Ready Fund. But we must go further by working with ministries of finance to unlock sustainable, flexible national resources, including contingency funds, social protection systems, and risk financing tools. Ultimately, early warning systems should do more than inform. They must enable people everywhere to act with confidence before disaster strikes. Thank you.
شكرا لك السيدة نينا. وشكرا لجميع المتحدثين على آرائهم ومساهمتهم الملهمة. معالي أنطونيو غوتيريس، لقد استمعتم إلى آراء أعضاء المؤتمر والمنظمات القائدة لركائز مبادرة الإنذار المبكر للجميع، ويسعدني الآن أعطيكم الكلمة لتقديم تأملاتكم وتعقيباتكم حول ما استمعتم إليه اليوم. تفضل سيدي.
Well, I must say I am impressed with the extraordinary commitment of WMO and its partners on making sure that our projects led by WMO in relation to the early warning system becomes a reality. And I would say it's absolutely essential that it becomes a reality everywhere in 2027, and I fully understand the obstacles from the financial point of view and from the capacity to mobilize partners, resources, sometimes the political will of governments. But it is essential to have it in place. And it's not difficult to forecast that the work of the WMO will be extremely vital in the next decade. We are receiving the national determined contributions, and we received already the equivalent of 70% of emissions. The result is a reduction of emissions to 2035 of 10%. According to what many of our science advisors have told us, it should be around 60%. I had yesterday, because I believe that science and truth are absolutely crucial when we discuss these issues, and WMO has been in the forefront of the fight for science and for truth in today's world, against all odds sometimes. I had, the day before yesterday, a meeting with a number of scientists, some of them members of the IPCC, in order to discuss with them what is the right strategy in the approach and the right messaging in the approach to the COP in Brazil. A few reports will be presented. One will be WMO on the emissions gap. But one thing is already clear. We will not be able to contain the global warming below 1.5 degrees in the next few years. The overshooting is now inevitable, which means that we're going to have a period, bigger or smaller, with higher or lower intensity above 1.5 degrees in the years to come. And that means that the importance of early warning systems and the importance of the work of the WMO will be vital, because the devastating impacts of this overshooting are to be expected. Now, that doesn't mean that we are condemned to live with 1.5 degrees lost. No. If there is a paradigm shift and people assume seriously that we need to deal with the problem, it is possible to anticipate as much as possible to get to net zero, and then to be consistently with negative net in the future, in order for temperatures to again go down, and the 1.5 still remains, according to all the scientists I met, possible before the end of the century, if there is a very serious package of measures that correspond indeed to a paradigm shift, but in which fortunately we have both the science and the economy at our service. But one thing is sure, the next decade you will have a lot of work, a lot of extremely important work to preserve as much as possible human lives, to preserve as much as possible communities, and to preserve as much as possible the economies of countries, especially in the most vulnerable areas in the world. And so I have to say WMO is becoming more important than ever. And to have early warning system fully in place everywhere in 2027 must be for all of us an absolute priority. The good news is that after listening to you, I trust that independently of what the errors of humankind will lead in relation to climate change, you will be there in the first line of protection of the populations worldwide, and we can trust on your competence, your professionalism, and your very solid science-based approach, and the use of the technologies that are today essential to make your work even more effective. So thank you very much, and please be prepared, because in the next few years there will be a vital role to be played by the World Meteorological Organization.
شكرا لك سعادة الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة. والآن أود أن أدعو البروفيسورة سيليستي فور كلمتها الختامية.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Certainly I want to thank all the members of Congress for your openness and ideas. And thank you very much to the pillar leads organizations for your important perspectives. And of course, thank you, Secretary-General, for your reflections and your views on the importance of WMO now, but even more in the future. You can count on the support of WMO community in the weeks ahead, COP30, and indeed in the months and years to come. Because we strive to save lives and build resilience. Today we have shared a truly meaningful exchange that will inspire our efforts going forward. In recognition of our sincere appreciation of your outstanding contribution to our mission, the President and I have the honor to invite you to join us at the table next to the podium so we can present to you a gift from the World Meteorological Organization. Please join us.
Technology is going to deal with it, but if everybody could stand.